Let's see, we're continuing today. Meretz Hashem on Samach Gimel Amud Aleph 63a in the wide lines, about 4 lines in. Amr Chizkiya Breidra Parnach Amr Rabbi Yochanan. So Amr Chizkiya the Breidra Parnach Amr Rabbi Yochanan. Lama Nismecha Parsha Sota Parshas Trumos and Maasros. So why is the section of Sota next to the section of Trumos and Maasros? Lomar Lacha Shekol Sheyesh Lo Trumos and Maasros Ve'Eino Nosan LeKohen L'Sof Nitzrach LeKohen Ayidei Ishtov. So that's a very profound Gemara to teach us that whoever does not give out his proper tithes to the Kohen, doesn't give out his Trumos and Maasros to the Kohen. So in other words, he is avoiding seeing the Kohen by not giving his Trumos and Maasros. Sof Nitzrach LeKohen Ayidei Ishto. In the end, he's going to have to come see the Kohen because of the Sota process. Remember again, the Sota process itself is administered by the Kohen. Shene Emar v'ish es kadashav lo yihiyah. V'samach lai ish kitiste ishto uksive via ish es ishto. So the Gemara knows just the juxtaposition of the psukim themselves. So they also the lashon over here is right. V'ish es kadashav yihiyu ish. So again, the same lashon is also of ish. So if you don't come to the Kohen to give your Trumas and Maasros, you're going to come to see the Kohen because you bring your wife because she's a Sota. So we'll say, so first of all, such a strange Gemara, right? What's the nature of the juxtaposition between, or the connection between Trumas and Maasros and Sota? If a person doesn't give his Trumas and Maasros to a Kohen, so he doesn't come to quote unquote see the Kohen like that, he's going to come to see the Kohen a different way by having to undergo the Sota process. So I once saw a beautiful, profound explanation of this. If a person doesn't give Trumas and Maasros, that means that they're stingy. So often people who are stingy with their money may also be stingy with their time and their emotions. And chas v'shalom, if a person is stingy and doesn't give his wife the necessary time and emotional connection, so chas v'shalom, every person craves companionship and every person craves connection. If chas v'shalom one doesn't receive that within the confines of an appropriate and normal marriage, chas v'shalom one could seek it outside of the marriage. And again, I don't remember who I saw this explanation the name of, but I thought it was a very profound insight that a person who's stingy with his money may become stingy, or may be stingy with his emotions and attentiveness as well, and chas v'shalom may cause for the dissolution of the fabric of his marriage. Incredible. Not only that, but if a person doesn't give his Trumas and Maasros, in other words, presumably a person doesn't give his Trumas and Maasros because he's trying to save money, right? He wants to save his own money, and he doesn't want to have to give it to anyone else. So a person who does that ultimately, again, will become in need of Trumas and Maasros, of tzedakah himself. Shene'amar v'ish es kadashav lo yihiyah. Aron Nachar Yitzchak v'im noslan sof misaser. That was actually very beautiful. Misasher, excuse me. If a person does give Trumas and Maasros, at the end of the day, he'll become rich. Shene'amar ish asher yitin lakoin lo yihiyah. Lo yihiyah mamon harbes. The lashon of the pasuk is that which you give to a Kohen, lo yihiyah, will be yours. In other words, that when you give, you get. We know that tzedakah is one of these very interesting mitzvahs that normally a person can't test HaKadosh Baruch Hu, but when it comes to tzedakah, a person is permitted to give tzedakah on the condition that he becomes rich. So the more you give, the more you get. The Gemara goes, "Vayta Amar Rav Huna bar Bracha Mishur Belazar Kafar, Kol Hamishtatev Shem Shemayim B'Tzaro, Koflin Lo Parnasaso." So this is very profound. So the Gemara literally translated, it means that whoever makes HaKadosh Baruch Hu a partner when he's suffering, so he gets a double parnas, a double livelihood. Now, what does this mean? Perhaps like Shneimar v'haya shakai b'tzarecha v'kesaf sov'sofos lach. Rabbi Shmuel bar Nachmani Amar parnasaso me'ofefes lo ketzipor. That ultimately, so the idea is that his parnasa will fly to him like a bird, meaning he won't have to exert that much effort. Shneimar v'kesaf to'afos lach. Now, what does this mean? I think what it means is like this: that when a person is experiencing financial turmoil, if he recognizes that his parnasa comes from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So sometimes, interestingly enough, when a person is experiencing financial distress, there are 2 approaches. Number 1 is sometimes I have to work harder, or I have to work longer, or I have to work more. But it's also equally as important, more important to recognize when a person is suffering financial stress, how a person has to reach out to HaKadosh Baruch Hu and ask the Ribono Shel Olam for assistance as well. So a person who suffers financial distress and asks Hashem for help in alleviating that distress, HaKadosh Baruch Hu answers his tefillos. Am Rabbi Tavi, Am Rabbi Yoshia. Kol merape atzmo midivrei Torah ein lo koach lamo biyom tzara. So literally again, so the Gemara says, Kol merape atzmo midivrei Torah, anyone who weakens himself from words of Torah, ultimately again he won't have strength. He won't have strength when he is in distress. Shneimar his rapisa biyom tzara tsar kol chacha. Amrav Masa Rabbi Shmuel va'afilu mitzvah achos. In the achos shneimar harpisicha mikol makom. So we'll say so really incredible. Amrav Safra Rabbi Avo hava mishtoi. So Rabbi Avo was once talking and he said over the following ma'aseh. Kishar Rabbi Chanina ben Achi Rabbi Yoshua Vagola. When Rabbi Chanina, right, the son of Rabbi Yeshua's brother, went down into the Galus, went down right into Babel. So again, he was busy, with intercalating of the months. He was busy with the calendar. So the Gemara says. Now remember, normally that Rashi points out over here that the halacha is that the creation of the calendar and the intercalation of the years and the months is only done in Eretz Yisrael. It's not done in Chutz La'aretz. So he did something he was not supposed to do. Shigru achrav shnei talmidei chacham Rabbi Yossi ben Kifer uben benosh Rabbi Zechariah ben Akvuto. So from Eretz Yisrael they sent two talmidei chachamim to give him usur. Namely Rabbi Yossi ben Kifar and the son of Rabbi Zechariah ben Kavutal. Kevan Shara Osam Amar Lahem. So when Chanina saw them approach him, he said to them, "Why are you here? Lama Basim Amrulei." So they said to him, "Lilmod Torah banu. We came to learn Torah with you." Came to the Torah. Now it's interesting. Now remember, so Rashi points out there, what were they doing? They didn't come to learn Torah. They came to give him Musar. But they also understood that if they told Chanina that they came to give him Musar, he would become, combative. So instead they tried to diffuse the situation a little bit. Hichriz aleim. Rabbi Chanina said about them, Anashim halol gidoli hadarhim ba'osem shimshu bebeis hamikdash kosam sheshaninu. So Rabbi Chanina said about them that these are individuals, holy people, right? Holy people, they are Gedera Gedoli Hadar, and their ancestors served in the Beis Hamikdash. Ke'osa Sheshaninu, quotes over here from the Mishnah in Yuma, Zechariah ben Kavutal Omer, Harbe Pamim Karisi Lefana V'Sefer Daniel. So this is very interesting. So Zechariah ben Kavutal said that it was his job to keep the Kohen Gadol up on the night of Yom Kippur, right? The halacha is, Kohen Gadol is not allowed to sleep on the night of Yom Kippur, because we're afraid that if he falls asleep, he may have a seminal emission. So we keep him up. So Zechariah ben Kavutal says, many times I kept the Kohen Gadol up on Yom Kippur night. How did I do that? By reading to him from Sefer Daniel, right? Because Sefer Daniel has a lot of esoteric visions and nevuos. So I read to him in order to keep him up. Hischil hu mitame vehem mitarim. So what happens? So what happens is as follows. Every time Rabbi Chanina would make something tamei, so these other rabbanim would paskin the opposite, and they would say that it was tar. Who aser vehem matirim. Whenever he would ask for something, they would be matir something. Hichriz aleim. So he said about them, Anashim alolo shal shavheim shal tohuheim. So then Rabbi Chanina kind of changed course a little bit. He said, these guys, they're nothing. The problem was Amrulo. Kvar banisa v'iyatayachal listar. So the problem is, they said back to Rabbi Chanina, you already built these guys up. So if you built them up, how can you turn around and now destroy them? Amr lahem mipnei ma'ani mitami v'atem mitarim ani oser v'atem matirim. So Rabbi Chanina says these other rabbanim, guys, what's going on over here? Why is it that if I matter something, I permit something, you ask for it, I make something tar, you make it tame? Amr lo mipnei sha'ata ma'aber shonin lekovei chadashim b'chutza la'aretz. So they said, Rabbi Chanina, you're doing something that's prohibited. You're not allowed to play with the calendar outside of Eretz Yisrael. Amr lahem v'alo Akiva ben Yosef hayim ma'aber shonin lekovei chadashim b'chutz la'aretz. But Rabbi Akiva used to go ahead and fix the calendar outside of Eretz Yisrael. Amr lo hanach Rabbi Akiva shoniach kamosa be'Eretz Yisrael. So this is incredible. So they said back, leave Rabbi Akiva out of this. Right? Rabbi Akiva was the undisputed Gadol Hadar. And when he left Eretz Yisrael, there was no one of his caliber, no one of his standing, right, who was still in Eretz Yisrael. So he's cut from a different cloth. So Rabbi Akiva was governed by a different set of rules. Amar lahem. So it's pretty incredible. Rabbi Chanina says, Af ani lo hinachti kamosi be'eretz Yisrael. So same thing. There's no other person who's of my standing and learning in Eretz Yisrael. Amru lo kedim shenachtu nasa tiyashim bali karnaim. So Rabbi Chanina, you've been gone for a while. So literally it means like the little sheep that you left behind have now become rams with horns. In other words, that when you left, so you were the undisputed Gadol Hadar. Now that you left, Baruch Hashem, other people have really risen to the occasion. Ve'hem shigrunu atzlacha, and it's those very Talmidei Chachamim that have sent us to you to get you to stop playing with the calendar. So v'chein amru lanu, and they said to us, l'chu ve'imru lo b'shmeinu, im shomea mutav ve'im la v'yehei b'nidu. And Rabbi Chanina, so now again the gloves come off. They say, Rabbi Chanina, we're here with a not so veiled threat, and the threat is either you stop, right? Either you stop and you stop playing with the calendar, and we're all is good. Or if not, we're going to excommunicate you. Rabbi say Samech Gimel Amud Beis 63b. So va'amru ve'imru la'achinu shebegola. Right, good. So the Gemara is right. So v'mshamei muta v'imlavi yeminu v'amru, and say v'amru la'achinu shebegola. And furthermore, again, so remember these two rabbanim from Eretz Yisrael, they come with the further message. Say to our brothers in the diaspora, im shomin mutav. If you listen to us, rabbanim of Eretz Yisrael, very good. Ve'imlav, but if you don't listen to us, ya'alu lahar. Ya'alu lahar. Let them go up onto a mountain. Now Rashi points out over here that this going up on a mountain was a reference to Avodah Zarah. It was common for all the Avodah Zarah to build their mizbeachos, to build their altars on mountains. Achia yivne mizbeach, chanina yenagin bikinar, v'yichberu kulam v'yomru ein lahem chelek be'elokei Yisrael. So this is a pretty intense idea over here. So they said again, let Achia, right? So Achia was the head of Babylonian Jewry. Let Achia go up and build an altar for Avodah Zarah, and let Chanina, Rabbi Chanina, go ahead and play a harp for Avodah Zarah. V'yichberu kulam v'yomru, and let all of Klal Yisrael diaspora say, Ein lanu chelek be'elokei Yisrael. We have no portion in the God of Israel. So what's happening over here? So these rabbis are telling Rabbi Chanina as follows. Rabbi Chanina, the halacha is, do not go ahead and play with the calendar outside of Eretz Yisrael. Rabbi Chanina thought that he had the right to do so because he put himself in the category of Rabbi Akiva, the undisputed leader of Klal Yisrael. They essentially told him, you're not. There are other people who are as great or greater than you in Eretz Yisrael, and therefore you have no right to manipulate the calendar. And essentially they issued an ultimatum: either back down or acknowledge that what you're doing is outside of the framework of normative halacha, and you're essentially operating as a rogue faction. And if you're a rogue faction, you're no different than those who worship idolatry. Then go up on the mountain and build your altars. Go play the harp, and recognize then that you are outside of the system and that you're not part of the normal Yiddishkeit. So we'll say, although this sounds like very intense and very dramatic, so understand, the calendar controls everything, right? The calendar controls all Yamim Tovim, and so many halachas are dependent on the Yamim Tovim. So the fact that Rabbi Chanina was playing with the calendar when he wasn't supposed to represented a real existential threat to like the continuity of the diaspora community. So they felt that they had to deal with it very intensely. So when the people heard this, miyad go kala'am bebechiyah va'amru chas v'shalom yesh lanu chelek be'elokei Yisrael. So the people are hearing this exchange between Rabbi Chanina and these other rabbanim, and like, chas v'shalom, of course, we're Yidden, we're Jews, we have a chilek in HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And they cried out, v'chol kach lama. So ultimately, again, right, what's going on over here? In other words, that, remember, this was after the destruction of the Beis HaMikdash. If that was the case, why couldn't Rabbi Chanina go ahead and manipulate the calendar? Not manipulate. Why couldn't he go ahead and arrange the calendar outside of Eretz Yisrael? Mishum shene'emar ki mitzion teitzei Torah udvar Hashem miYerushalayim. So we'll say the profound pasuk, because the pasuk says ultimately again out of Tzion, right? Pasuk in Yeshayahu, out of Tzion comes Torah udvar Hashem, and the word of Hashem from Yerushalayim, which the Gemara understands over here that the final word of God, i.e. in this context the calendar, always comes from Yerushalayim, and even when there is no Beis HaMikdash, still the final word comes from Tzion. So the Gemara says, Bishlama hu metar v'hei metam l'chumra. So I understand. So going back to the story, Why do Rabbi Chanina would declare something tar, they would declare it tameh. So I understand they're going l'chumrah. But if he was declaring something tameh, how do they have the right to declare it tar? Because we have a general halacha that once a particular Talmid Chacham has assered something, another Talmid Chacham can't come along and be matir it. And if a certain Talmid Chacham said that something is aser, another Talmid Chacham can't come along and say that it's mutar. So how are they able to do this? To which the Gemara says, no, kasavri ki hechi de lo negardu basrei. So you're right, this was a little bit more extreme, but they felt that they had to do this in order to, to a certain degree, discredit Rabbi Chanina and ensure that the populace would not follow him. In other words, they did not know if Rabbi Chanina was going to back down. And they know that they needed to get him to stop. So therefore, again, they felt that they had to drive a wedge between him and the Babylonian constituency. So because of that, they did things that normally even you wouldn't do. So we'll say a really profound Gemara, and also really highlights the incredible and overwhelming fidelity that we have to the Masorah. Kimitzion Teitzei Torah Uduvar Hashem Mirushalayim. Yiddishkeit is beautiful and it's wonderful and it's inspirational, but it's also a legal system. And because it's a legal system, there has to be a process that is followed. And if you break the process, then you really run the risk of being outside of the framework. And although it sounds severe and although it sounds intense, it has to happen that way in order to maintain just the fidelity to the system and the integrity of the system. So we got to 2 dots. We'll stop over here for today. Shkoyach, everyone.